Hey guys, it's LastBroHecan coming at you with another video, another little tutorial for Europa Universalis. This one is going to be more so geared towards very new players. It's going to help you understand, how do you handle coalitions? Simple as that. How can you disband them peacefully, not through fighting them? How do they kind of come up? Just some of the basic mechanics around it, just because if you're new to Europa, can be a very nebulous and scary thing when you have your first coalition formed against you. And I'm sure, as many of you have found out the hard way, if you push too hard, the coalition will fight you, and it can definitely end a playthrough if not handled carefully. Alrighty, so in this example, I am playing as Brandenburg. I'm on my way to forming Prussia. But of course, as you normally need to do, you have to slap down Poland a bit to really make things happen. And so here we're taking a big chunk of it. And as we can see, I am definitely going to incur the wrath of a coalition. Whenever you play Europe, you're always going to have to think about the Holy Roman Empire in this. That's kind of the whole issue with with Europe, is that it's very easy to generate aggressive expansion. Now, if you're very new to the game, you may be asking yourself or asking me, LastBroHecan, what is aggressive expansion and how do I reduce it, or how can I avoid it? Well, you cannot avoid it with taking land. You can work around it with reconquering Causa Spelli, but otherwise, almost one way or another, you are going to have to take on some aggressive expansion. It just depends on how much you are going to take at one time. The easiest formula around understanding it is that if a province has more development in it, more numbers for military, diplo, or admin, you're going to take on more aggressive expansion. Simple as that. So typically this means that countries' capitals typically have a lot more development in them, and so by taking them, you're going to take on more aggressive expansion. Alrighty, so back to the gameplay at hand here. We have our coalition slowly building against us, or rather quickly, depending how you look at it. And so what we need to do right now is immediately start kind of our diplomatic mission. There's a few mechanics that you need to think about when you have a coalition against you, in terms of how you can slowly disband it. If you're new to the game, if you're a new player, what you may kind of think is that coalitions just slowly dissipate on their own, and they do if they don't attack you. And over a course of time, they will just kind of organically disband on their own. But there are ways around this that you can slowly weaken a coalition without firing a single shot, without attacking the coalition head on. And that's what we're going to show today. So it's always a good idea to have diplomats automatically set to working on outraged countries. They won't fully do the job that I'll be looking for us to do, but they'll get us a good amount there. And so having at least one or two diplomats working and getting your relations up with outraged countries is definitely going to be the right way to go. Now, if you're curious as to why coalitions will sometimes attack you or not attack you, the formula really just boils down to this. The entire military weight of the coalition has to exceed the weight of you and your allies, or said differently, your allies that are willing to fight with you. So what I am doing here is also aligning myself with the Ottomans to just truly lock in that no one is going to want to mess with me. The weight of my allies is too great for this coalition, especially in the Holy Roman Empire, to actually take on. The next part of this is I'm going to be targeting specific nations in the coalition to get their opinion of me above 50. 50 is kind of that sweet spot. I would say 50 to 70 positive rating is when members of a coalition will start doubting the process and start falling out. Because at that point, they switch from an outrage relationship status with you to either a liking or subject or subversive. This is where they will kind of change the way that they look at you from that outrage status. We're really trying to just get rid of the outraged. And this is why I mentioned that your diplomats that are focused on outraged nations will get you most of the way there, but not always. How it's working right now for the mechanics for Europa is that your diplomats will get you to about 30 positive rating with them and then just drop off. So you'll want to take over the rest. And that's fine because they're trying to touch on everybody. They're just trying to, churn them and burn them. Whereas we can hyper focus on a few, get their relations above 50, and then eventually, usually about a month or two after turning 50, they'll drop out of the coalition, which is what we're going to see here. Once you start getting nations to 50 plus rating with you, you'll start seeing them slowly drop off. And that's a good sign. That shows that the coalition is slowly beginning to weaken. And that is the big name of the game here of dismantling coalitions without actually fighting a coalition war. You want to be able to slowly pick them off one by one. And yeah, that's the whole strategy. Basically, once you get a coalition, make sure you and your allied forces outnumber the weight of the coalition. Obviously, you'll know this by looking at the war demands. If you see that you have some really big superpowers that are willing to join that coalition, maybe don't take as much because their weight will outweigh you. Second part is work on relationships. Make sure all those smaller nations have a relationship of 50 with you and they'll never want to stay in it or they'll never join it. It also helps that if they are nations that have the same religion as you. That's a big key, especially in the Holy Roman Empire. Protestants are going to be quicker to drop off if you're a Protestant nation, Reform for Reformed, and of course Catholic for Catholic. But yeah, I hope this was helpful, everyone. As always, this is Last Brohican, and take it easy, y'all.